Did you expect now? You temporarily shut down comments on your channel. Did
Mm,
you expect that
no.
people would get so upset about that? Because did you expect the level of animosity that's going to create, or did
No, I
you?
had no idea. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. I think I lost like 500 subscribers in like an hour.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, it
No
is.
creator will admit it, but we don't like losing subscribers.
No, and it's I'll tell you, I mean, it's been a lot harder for almost every finance channel to grow subscribers in just the last probably 6 months or so. I mean,
Yep.
crypto channels are going slower, finance channels slower, everything is just slowed down.
But in hindsight, like if I gave you, like, you remember, I'm assuming, even though you're much younger than me, you're a fan of Back to the Future because you seem to be the type to like the movie. So that's my favorite
My
movie of all times.
I mean, you referenced my commercial. The bully in the TV commercial I
Is
made is
Biff?
named
Is
Biff.
Biff? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
I know. So if I gave you a DeLorean, Doc's DeLorean right now, and you can go back, to whatever date in the past month, where would you go? What would you do, and what would you change? Obviously, this is all like an academic question, but how? What would you like? You know what? What would you tell to Kevin if you go back to like 2 weeks ago? What would you tell Kevin 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I wouldn't have sat on my hands as long. I'll tell you exactly what I would have gone back to. I would have gone back to, here we go. The day they released the January minutes from the Federal Reserve, which was the meeting they had on December 14th and 15th, which they released the minutes. I think it was like January 6th or 7th. I can't find the exact date, but one of those, like the first week of January. And I would have told myself, Kevin, this is the worst report that you've ever seen. Unfortunately, it took me like 2 weeks to for it to actually process in my mind, like, wait a minute, maybe this has a portfolio impact. And I wish I would have just fully processed it when I had my reaction to it, and made a video about it and fully applied it to my portfolio then. So that would have meant I would have sold about 2 weeks earlier.
So do you think that that kind of while you were processing what's happening, and do you regret making the video where you said basically I'm all in and all the stuff? They like to show that clip of you saying I'm not fucking living. Like, do you regret doing the video right now? Like, would
No,
you?
because see, what happens is we program ourselves to act in a very specific way and to invest in a certain way and to be very consistent about that until something changes. It's kind of like if you're driving the Titanic, you steer it towards where you're going. And if all of a sudden there's an iceberg in front of you, you got to change course fast. And so that's what happened for me. And I know people like to say, oh, how could you go from one day, being bullish about the market to the next day, oh my gosh, I'm all out. Well, that's when all of the facts culminated and that iceberg realization hit of, oh my gosh, this is way worse than I expected. Okay, now what do we want to do? And so it was really one of those moments where I even made this clip. I took clips from the Titanic and put it together because that's how it felt. It was basically this image of somebody seeing, oh my gosh, the iceberg, right? And then running down to the control room and turning the engines backwards and the freak out, right? And people like to say that it's a flip out or it's a flip flop or it's emotional. And for me, it was very calculated that the expected value of staying in the market was substantially lower than the expected value of getting out and waiting. And so we made a calculated decision to get out.
Do you not think that framing it in a different way would have saved you a lot of the grief? Like basically saying,
Probably. I don't have a PR team though.
no, but like, I mean, what if you would have just said, hey guys, a lot of this is analytical, a lot of this is methodology, crowd psychology, but sometimes you have to go with your gut, and I'm just going with my gut, which is a fair game. But if you would, I think if you would have said it that way, you basically eliminate any sort of criticism of, oh, how could the system give you different answers within the 48-hour span? I think you would have saved yourself a lot of trouble.
Uh, the thing is, it wasn't
Because
so
it's fair
much
game, to
that.
be honest, Kevin. It's fair game to say, hey, sometimes you got to go with your gut. It's part of investing.
Totally agree with you. The problem is, I don't think there was like one thing that fell in my lap that day that said, you have to change your opinion. I think it was really about a month of research, and the way I picture it is, imagine you have a book, and every day you're writing down a little bit of research, and every day you turn the page. Every day you're focused on that one page, and then at the end of the month you close the book, and then a week later you come to it and you're like, what did I write down? And then you sit there and you go through, oh my gosh, oh man, oh wait a minute, these are all starting to connect. That's the moment that happened, right? It was that collection of all of the month of research before that, of what has happened since about the beginning of December, that made me have that oh crap moment of, I really need to be aware of the signs that are happening here. How does this apply to what I think could happen in the market? And then that's where I made the decision that, okay, wait a minute, we got to be out.
It sounds to me, Kevin, that because you chose to be very kind of wear your heart on your sleeve and be extremely transparent with what you think and what you do, you bought yourself a world of trouble. Because if you
100%.
played it a little bit more aloof and didn't kind of telegraph every thought you have, then all of this would probably not exist, I think.
Yep. Pretty much.
Do you think that this kind of you think then being transparent is counterproductive for a guy in the YouTube finance community? Because I mean,
yes.
And I think you think it will change the way you operate because of what you just went through?
Probably not. It certainly made me think that, let me put it this way, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone else. If somebody's not already got everything out there and it's kind of like, oh, nothing left to show, there's no reason to start that. It's really bad because people overanalyze every single move. And I kind of learned that when I ran for governor in California too, is there's a reason why when you go to a politician's website, and I hate politicians, I hate politics completely. There's a reason why you go to politicians' websites and their actual plans are really vague. They never tell you exactly what they're going to do. And so when I ran in California, I put on my website exactly what I was going to do, point by point, exactly what my plan was. And all that led to was journalists from every organization in California picking apart every little detail, showing me why something could not work rather than why something could work, right? Because that runs the story. So I kind of learned that in general, there's a reason why most people are not 100% transparent. It's because it's not meant to be understood by everyone.
Do you regret running for office? I mean, it was probably not a pleasant experience. It sounds like a lot of hard work for just a lot of trouble.
It was, yeah. I mean, looking back, I mean, realistically, it like profit and loss wise, it was a waste of time and cost a lot of money. But experience wise, perspective wise, best thing I could have ever done. Kind of like getting sued. Best thing you could ever do to learn about the legal system is get sued.
I think you got sued by Grant, right? Did you not?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you're getting sued by Grant Cardone is definitely, it's either gonna make you or break you, and I don't think it broke you. But
Nope.
there's like, so do you not miss the ease of just doing real estate, of how nobody was upset? You had the fan base that was completely kind of educational. You're still getting plenty of views. Do you not miss the good old times where things were clean and kind of harmless?
Yeah, of course. It's funny, I talked to other creators about that, and we look back to, traveling and just being able to talk about real estate, like you said, and everybody loved it. It was looking back, it was an easier time. in the moment, it was probably just as stressful because you're trying to grow, you're trying to expand, you're trying to figure out, okay, what is your audience? What do they want to see more of? And so there's so much more uncertainty in terms of like how to build your channel, right? I was still trying to find myself, and it took forever to figure out exactly where I really belonged. And so now I have that certainty, but then with that comes all of the uncertainty of, oh my gosh, here now I got 20 new videos people are making about me. Oh, Business Insider is now talking about how Kevin sold all his stocks. It's just nuts.
Did you believe if I told you like 2 years ago you're gonna be on Business Insider analyzing your stock market trades? Does it not
No
sound something
way,
like?
dude.
Yeah, they would have said this is no way.
Yeah.
I think if you told me 3 years ago that I'm going to be on the Financial Times having a legal battle against Nicola, trying to shut down my channel, I would have told you like there's yeah, I understand, but when you're in it, you don't feel. Once you're in it, it's like when you play in the playground and you like the guys in the NBA, but once you get there, you don't feel. It doesn't feel special. It just feels like a job. It doesn't. You
That's
don't
a good point.
have the sense of awe anymore. So
Yeah.
understand how.
Yeah. That's one of the downsides, unfortunately, is it's like that. I think that's a really good example. It's kind of like, okay, well, like, where do you go from here? So I don't know. Sometimes that's kind of depressing.
But that move from real estate to stock market, I mean, that was more creatively driven or financially driven? Because obviously there's
Oh,
more financial incentives in the stock market YouTube than in real estate YouTube, right?
Uh, well, the stock market YouTube became much more popular during the pandemic because everybody was home and there was nobody's going outside looking at renovations. I think there is a really good niche to be built in construction YouTube, like renovations and that. It's just much more complicated to make that kind of content because you're going to sets, you're going to scenes, you got to pick out the different portions of renovations up. So it's a lot more difficult to make that sort of content. And often the you know work/reward ratio is much easier with stocks. I mean, I can spend 3 hours, 4 hours going through earnings calls and do a really good detailed video on the stock market. It'd probably take me, I could do 2 or 3 of those a day. I could probably only do one real estate video a day. And so it was more just sort
Not
of
even
a
that.
product.
Not even
Yeah,
one a day. Probably
probably
two
not.
a week,
Yeah.
and if you have to kill yourself for 2 weeks.
Yeah, because it would get redundant too. I mean, there's only so much I could say about real estate. Stock market is just because the real estate market moves a lot slower. Like, how many times can I update you on the real estate market about what prices are? I can't do it that often. Whereas the stock market, it changes every freaking minute, every day.
I think you kind of replaced a little bit the talking heads on CNBC, and I'll tell you why I think
Oh,
that happened. Because yesterday, I was doing some work after market close or around market close, and I was doing some
yeah.
work, and I was just my head was exploding because we did a 2 hour podcast with Chris Williamson. I don't know if you know the guy. He's phenomenal.
It sounds familiar, but I don't know if.
He has a
Uh,
podcast. Like he had Jordan Peterson on. He's going back to interview him over at Texas in a couple of days
oh
with the
wow,
film crew, and he has. So we had him. Me and Justin had him on our podcast, and my head was exploding. After you do a 2 hour podcast, you just want to chill. So I was
it's
doing
a lot. Yeah.
some mild stuff on my computer, and I just wanted to relax and just. And I put on your channel. I usually don't watch your live streams. I more kind of watch your videos. And I put on the live stream, and I just found myself just putting this in the background and kind of enjoying the ASMR aspect of hearing about the market while I was working. And I think,
Oh,
and then I realized, well, why is this working better than like a CNBC? Well, you don't have commercial breaks, which kind of just,
uh,
kills that vibe for you. And the other thing, I think you've gotten really good at just keeping it going. There's no
okay.
you just it's really fluent. And I think
Wow.
that's also part, I think, why people criticize you. They say, well, he's really good at YouTube. His work ethic is, in fact, I mean, I was DMing with Sasha. He's a friend of mine. He made a really brutal video about you. So I'm friends
Oh,
with you. I'm friends with him. I have no problem with that. So I was DMing with him and I was like, I'm going to talk to Kevin. Do you have any questions you want to ask? And basically he said, well, I'm just going to read it. It's like, I think he has great work ethic. He's amazing at YouTube, but he's not an analyst. He's not analytically minded. And basically, his argument, I think, which I think a lot of people share, is that, well, you're killing it on YouTube. You're don't sleep. Obviously, I don't even know, like, what is it, 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m. So
Yeah, it's like 12:35 right now.
yeah, you don't sleep. You put up 5 6 videos a day. So everybody loves that part. But like a lot of
Mm.
people are saying, well, Kevin, like just a couple of months or years ago, I don't know, they dug up this clip of you saying, I'm never going to do a stock market course. You remember that's now circulating over social media. And I think it's fair
Seen
for
it.
a person to change their mind, because I'm going to tell you right now, uh, it's fair to change your mind, because if you decided to do a course and people are buying the course and people are not asking for refunds and basically giving you positive reviews, which is, I've never heard anybody say anything bad about your course, then the price, whatever you charge, is a fair price. If somebody's paying and they're not refunding, it's, I have no issues with it. So it's okay to change your mind. I feel it's nice for social media to have a soundbite of you saying, I'm never going to sell a stock market course, and then like show like the 9.95, whatever you charge for the course. I think it's funny. And
I
but I
think it's
don't
funny
think
too.
yeah, I don't think it's I don't find this morally wrong. But
Yeah, well, you know where it comes from
do
is
you think this
uh,
criticism though is like is coming from from more a place like, oh, well, you're a really good YouTuber, but like we don't trust you as a stock market analyst?
yeah, I mean, I think trust is for any individual to determine. You know, reputation is what other people think of you. Character is what you are. And I think my character is one of an analyst. And I think if people even watch the live analysis that I do of earnings, whether I'm pulling up 10Ks or 10Qs, or I'm reviewing what the Federal Reserve is doing live, or presidents, or whatever, I think people know I'm an analyst at heart. And for somebody to suggest that, I think is somebody who doesn't watch the channel regularly, and that's fine. There are plenty of people who watch a video of mine and they're like, "Oh, I don't like this guy," and then they just want to bag on you. No problem, whatever. As far as the course thing, that's
By the way, I
it,
sorry to interrupt you, but you know there was a guy on the internet who made a video about me that I have a pug face. He said he has a pug face, and I found it hilarious. Like
yeah.
I totally get it, bro. Like there's gazillion people in the world. No, but no, there's not. Some people just want like your voice, your face, your beard, your nose, whatever, right?
Hey, you know what? Some people just, you can't make everyone happy, as they say. So, as far as the course thing, it's totally true. Back in 2017 and 18, I remember specifically, I took Graham Stephan to a rental property in Newbury Park, California, and we were talking about how we neither of us wanted to sell courses, and
That quickly
you know,
changed.
within it did for both of us. But we both thought, courses not for us, we don't want to do them. And the thing that really changed is that we realized the YouTube algorithm really prioritizes hot topic sort of videos, and it's very difficult to do like a stream of let's say 100 or 200 videos in a row where you really walk somebody through your thesis on whether it's real estate or stocks or something, to where if somebody goes chronologically, then they understand how your brain works, how you analyze stocks, how you analyze the news or markets or people or whatever. That's very, very difficult to do just on a YouTube channel. And so, those sorts of videos won't perform, even though they are the most critical, in my opinion. And that's where we both individually realized courses can be very, very useful for that. And if somebody doesn't want to pay, they don't have to. There's no force for that. They could try to learn themselves, or get their perspectives from wherever they want. I pay, just as an example, I pay $3,000 a month for the Bloomberg terminal, something like that. It's like $2,800 a month. I pay $3,500 for retail tracking, or $1,500 for the Reuters terminal, and these are monthly fees, right?
Yep.
So I might be paying $7,000-8,000 a month for research, and in my opinion, it is a drop in the bucket, because if I can get just a little bit of extra perspective, or that little bit of extra, oh my gosh, I haven't been rethinking about it that way, it's worth it for me. I will gladly spend money for people's research. And a course is really no different than that.
I don't have issues at all with people selling courses. I have issues with people. I've done videos on this before. When you were doing your Grant Cardone videos, I was exposing the fake gurus. You remember I don't know if you saw me back then, like the Dan Locke type of guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So back in my early days. So
Yeah.
we both transitioned out of this our previous niches into what we're doing now. So when I was doing this, I was very critical of people selling courses, but
Yeah.
as things progress, even though I don't offer a course, and I kind of like to joke about it, don't sell nothing, don't buy nothing, don't click nothing. People,
Sure.
so even though I personally don't, I think that there's two types of courses. I don't think courses are
Mhm.
inherently bad or evil.
Yeah.
If you first of all, if you're using predatory marketing to sell your course, which is a lot of these guys that criticized back in the day, they do, but they
That's
click
true.
funnels and all of this, like they're paying insane CPMs. When I was doing my videos about the fake gurus, bro, my CPM was over $150. It's
Oh, wow.
insane because they advertise on these channels. Part of the reason why I stopped because I realized most of the ads are coming from them putting ads on my channel because
Wow.
the ROI is insane. So they're putting a lot of money into this. So this is predatory to me because they're preying on the weak. People will pay anything for love, health, and wellness, right? So these are the three.
That's true.
So they're preying on the weak, and the courses are like $5,000, the high ticket ones, so. And the value I feel is trash. I'm just gonna call it out. However, if you're selling a course, and also there's a lot of fraud that goes on into the refund policy. So you see like a 30-day money back guarantee, and then you go and you read the fine print, and it says, well, it's 30 days unless you completed more than 40% of the course
Oh,
in the first 2 weeks. So basically, it's just like a fucking bullshit. So
yep.
I know you give full refunds. I don't have a statistical metric to judge how many people like or didn't like a course. Anybody I spoke to seemed to enjoy the course and seemed to think there's value in it. The course is priced at whatever it's priced. If people are paying, there's no upsell, there's no extra course, there's no private like 5,000 course. So it seems to me that it's fair game. It's a free market. You're selling, they're buying, nobody's refunding. That's fair. No issues for me. And I know that there's a lot of people who are just fucking jealous, and that's fine. It is what it is. However, and here's where the point I want to touch on is I think that the courses in itself is what's getting you in hot water because people are not seeing, I think, the stuff that you were mentioning, which is the insane amount of expenses and time that's put into this, and they're basically saying, well, Kevin is a grifter, right? Kevin is selling the courses, Kevin is that and that. I think that it the, and I feel like there's a lot of this that's driven out of people looking at you and saying, well, I'm not less talented than him. I should be making millions of dollars. Why is he
Mhm.
making I think, do you feel like a lot of the criticism to you is kind of people have to disguise it as professional criticism because they're just secretly jealous, or in a way they have like a cognitive dissonance about it?
I mean, it could be that. It could also be that it's easy content, right? It's easy content to make fun of people, especially if you've got a channel with, you know, 1,000 subscribers, 3,000 subscribers, 50,000 subscribers. It's so easy to just go, oh, my thoughts on Meet Kevin. And the most shareable content is the content that's going to get the most views. And so somebody can make a video, you know, shouting or yelling or being extremely critical. Those are videos that are most likely to do well. So I think part of it has to do with how society operates, which is ultimately what the YouTube algorithm
Yep.
is. But yeah, I think there could also be an element of what you've described. Absolutely.
Do you feel like sometimes letting people know, like like you have a lot of new audience that kind of joined in the last 18 months that
Mhm.
haven't seen the previous iteration? Do you sometimes not want to give them a glimpse of like the Kevin who traveled all the way to Florida and barged into
Oh,
the Grant Cardone office and like that? Like, do you not want to make that kind of content every once in a while just to give them a glimpse of the more edgy stuff you used to do?
I'm happy to. I mean, I love it. I put some edgy stuff on Twitter and Instagram, less on YouTube now, mostly because of the production time that goes into it. I mean, for me, I just look, I'm like, my gosh, some of the old videos, the more edgy kind of real estate stuff, like I used to do titles like I just left my family for a model. And it was a picture of like leaving my wife or whatever for a model. And when you click on the video, it was me at a model home. Talk about the benefits of new construction real estate or whatever, you know. And you know, but I would do these real estate videos, or like my house is sinking in quicksand or whatever. That was a good one. those videos, they would take me a day to film, 8 hours, 8 to 9 hours of editing with music and rewatching and production. It's a lot of work. And so now I've been a lot more freestyle, where I don't have the time to pull that together. I don't have the time to vlog I just went on a ski trip. I didn't vlog it. Maybe I should have, but even if I did, am I going to sit and edit it all together? Probably not. I really need to hire an editor. Then maybe I could do that again. But
First of all,
I
I
don't
think
want to do it.
you should, because I mean, every person I speak to who was on your channel from the old days, like I was, we all say we kind of missed the real estate stuff because nobody
That's
is
true.
saying, "Oh, the real stuff there was trash." We all kind of missed that, and I think there's a demand for this content as well.
That's a good
So
point. I need to, I'm gonna write it down. If anybody knows an editor, I need one. I'll write it down right now. We got to find
I
someone.
know a few good ones. I'll send you some really good
Please.
editors.
Thank you.
Coffee's. I know I can't say this on there. I'll tell you later. So, anyways, I wanted to ask you a tough question, and then
Sure.
do you? And this is kind of what I'm wondering. And we're friends, and I don't mean to bash you, and I absolutely
Please.
admire what you do, but I feel like when you made that original video basically saying, and by the way, we traded places, people are DMing me how funny it is that I was going for the past few months saying this is not the bottom, this is not the bottom, this is not the bottom, and then you were going the opposite, and now we completely flipped. I basically made the video a few days ago saying, well, this is the bottom, there's going to be a bull run, and then you flip. So people are like, did you trade brains with me, with Kevin, because we
Oh, that's
completely
funny.
flipped on the same day. However, I didn't get the same flack as you did, because, like, I mean, what happened is that if you waited for another week, I don't even think, not even a month, another week to space your, I mean, you change your mind the next day. But if there's an old saying in the judicial world, justice is not only should be done, it should be seen. And I think it's a brilliant statement I don't remember the judge that said this. And if you've made a decision and now but you say, hey, I just made a video a day ago, but you told yourself, well, my integrity mandates me to do it right now, and then you did it. But if you wait a week or even a couple of weeks and you say, hey, listen, and you made it seem as if, like, I don't think you get the flack. I don't think none of this happens. I think that
Yeah.
what happened is that 48 hours, not even 48 hours between the two videos, is what got you in hot water. And I'll tell you my problem with this. No issues with you changing your mind. No issues with you selling. There's no rule that says you have to diamond hand. I mean, what the fuck is this? You can do whatever you want. It's your money. You're transparent about it. Zero issues with this. No problem at all. I'll tell you where my problem is. So my problem is that you sell what seems to be a very value-filled course. But then this course is all about methodology and analytics. And then you say, well, I got a hunch, or I got an epiphany, whatever. And in 48 hours, I completely changed my analysis 180 degrees. And we kind of DM about this before on Twitter. And I feel like, in a way, it devalues the course, because not that can't be packaged as you can't sell a hunch. You can't sell intuition. It's just something you either have or you don't have. And I feel like it takes away from the value of the course. Can you settle this for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, there are two types of markets that you could be in. And the easiest way to look at it is just a cycle. When you are riding a market up, the psychology of buy the dip, don't look at your portfolio when it goes down, you reduce your expenses, increase your income, blah, 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 whatever, right? That works. You program it, you stick to it, you go, 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 go. You buy the dip. You don't worry about the rips. You don't worry about the dips. Just keep going, stay long. That's part of the cycle. However, you get to a point where every business cycle ends and the business cycle starts rotating down. And at this point, you have a choice. And usually it has to do with the size of your portfolio. If your portfolio is, say, $20,000 and you're making $50,000 a year, you probably should not care what the business cycle is. You should probably just, and not financial advice, but you should probably just stick with buy the dip, dollar cost average in, and don't worry about it. Because the reality is you should be more focused on figuring out how you can go from $50,000 a year of income to $100,000 a year of income. Because I could tell you, you taking your $20,000 portfolio and selling and then trying to buy back in to double it potentially or whatever, or not, is a waste of your time. Like, focus on your skills and make more money for yourself and your family. Now, if you're in a different situation where you do see a business cycle turning, because maybe you're in the industry where you see the business cycle turning, or you're studying the business cycles turning, and you have a large enough portfolio to where if the cycle did turn negative, we went into a large bear market, and you put cash aside, you might be able to take your portfolio and 3 or 4x it by actually having money to go shopping at the bottom of the market. Usually, in my opinion, this is probably for portfolios in excess of $500,000, if not many millions of dollars. And so I do not think that trying to play market cycles is the best for everybody at all. I think it's probably for 1 to 5% of individuals. And so I think it's actually really useful in my course to see both sides of that there are really different levels of wealth and different levels of responding to what's happening in the market. And addressing both of those scenarios is very, very important. And so I believe that for me personally, when we're on the rise and we have a supportive Federal Reserve, buy the dip, buy the bit. If I see a market turn where I think, let's say in a year, we could be in a recession and we could potentially have a real estate crash, it would make sense for me to position a large portfolio to the side to cash, because I'm going to be able to do a lot. I could do a whole lot of things with cash that I couldn't do if I just diamond handed it and rode the wave all the way down.
But I want to challenge you a little bit, and
Yep.
I want to understand. When I read your analysis, you sent me on Twitter your 8-point or 9-point analysis. I said all
Sure.
of this makes perfect sense. In
Yeah.
fact, I think it's a completely logical position, and I think it's well researched and well put. What my problem was, none of this changed in those 48 hours since you made the video of buy the dip, until you made the video I'm selling. So none of these factors shifted during this time, and that's where I had the problem. I was like, so how did this all of this was known to you, so that how the analysis changed so fundamentally in 2 days?
Yeah, it was really it's that book analogy again, right? It's having all of my analysis together. And then sometimes what happens as creators is we get stuck in this. Okay, and this happens to me regularly. Okay, it's market open. It's 6 a.m. I do this for an hour. Sometimes I want to trade, but I don't, because I'm in the middle of answering people's questions, and it's like, I miss out on a trade, right? So I think what happens is you get caught up sometimes in the routine of the day-to-day business. And so I have all this collected research. And it's only when we started earnings season and Netflix earnings came out, and I saw Netflix plummet, that 20% or whatever it was. That's when that was sort of that catalyst where I'm like, this is not normal. Those sort of fluctuations, even though Netflix gave bad guidance, instead of 6.5 mil of user growth, they gave about 2.5 mil, I think, which is like 35%. I mean, it's terrible guidance, right? That guide made me really nervous and made me go back to that book. It made me go, wait a minute. We have such a miserable guide from Netflix, one of the fangs. What else do I have in my research that tells me I need to be careful? And so the Fed minutes, combined with markets, in my opinion, not at all pricing in the financial conditions that we might be up against, plus all of the other earnings that we've gotten since when I sold, but we're talking about when I decided to sell. To me, it was a no-brainer to sell. So it was a combination again of Federal Reserve, earnings expectations, CPI catalysts, when I thought CPI would go down. And the biggest piece of the puzzle really is this balancing beam that the Fed has us on. And that is, we are either going to see an inflationary recession where inflation continues to run consumer spending goes down. Now all of a sudden we're basically in a stagnating economy where we have high inflation and a recession, which is terrible. And I do not believe the Fed will bail us out, and I'll explain why in just a sec. Or we go into a deflationary recession, prices fall, consumers stop spending, and we go into too much deflation. I don't think that's likely. I think it's more actually likely that we might go from an inflationary recession to a deflationary recession. Like that's how we end up getting deflation, is going through a recession. And I think the best case scenario is we just get supply chains chill out, inflation starts falling, so we get disinflation and we just recover. That's the best case scenario. Unfortunately, we also got those GDP comps or the GDP release. This was another factor. The GDP release came in at, I think we had an annualized GDP of like 6.9%. It was 5.5% year over year, or whatever. We're not going to beat that again next year. And so when I put all these puzzles together, I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got the potential for negative GDP in Q4 2022. We've got a Fed that has told us they do not care about asset valuations. Asset valuations are high. Those are a risk, a systemic risk to markets and our economy. In other words, they would prefer that asset prices come down. We have high job openings, which means the Fed's going to focus on inflation instead of jobs. And we have high inflation with no end in sight for inflation. When we start putting all of these pieces of the puzzle together, the picture became a lot more clear. And I think actually a puzzle is a great way to picture it. Like if somebody threw a bunch of puzzle pieces on my desk, I look at them like, okay, this is in my way. I'm just going to keep making my videos. I'm going to keep working. But I slowly put these pieces of the puzzle together, and then the picture became clear. Oh my gosh. And so that's why I think it felt so abrupt, because it was really the combination of this GDP print and the odds for a negative GDP print next year, Netflix, the fact that the Fed is not here to bail out our stock market, the insane balance that the Fed has, all of these things together for me, plus the fact that earnings guidance, my expectations were going to be all negative, which so far they have been, to me was just a very clear sell signal.
So basically for you, what you're saying is that I think out of all these factors, it's pretty much, I think Netflix was in the middle of these two videos, I believe, right? So this was kind of the,
it was one
the
of the,
light.
I don't know what you mean in the middle of the videos.
So between the two videos, the only thing that really like happened, changed is like the Netflix earnings came out after you made the initial video, right?
You know, it might sound like superstitious, but probably one of the catalysts that, and I know it sounds crazy, but one of the things that made me look at those puzzle pieces and made me really sit down and think, wait a minute, I need to go through all of these puzzle pieces and see if they form anything. And this, I know this sounds crazy, but it's the truth, because you can actually see it on my live streams. So I have this little thing. It's this little two-factor authentication thingy here from the Bloomberg terminal. And on May 19th of 2021, I got a code on here that said pray, P-R-A-Y. And on a live stream, I remember saying pray. That's weird. I wonder what that means. Whatever. And I remember saying that. And it's on my channel too. February 19th, you can see it. And the market ended up crashing. You know, the next 6 weeks were terrible. We had a little recovery in April. We got a horrible market in May, right? It was terrible. And so I told everyone, the next time I see something like that, I'm a sell. and I was mostly facetious, because I'm not just going to sell off of the superstition. But on like 2 days before I sold, I got a code, and it said SH9T. And the ninth letter of the alphabet is I.
Yeah, I understand.
Right? And so I looked at that. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's that same thing that happened on February 19th of 2021. It's a sign. And I don't know if I believe in you know, karma or whatever, or signs or whatever, but that stupid little thing, and I know how crazy it sounds, but that made me sit down and say, you know what? I need to look at those puzzle pieces. And that's when I put all of the pieces of the puzzle together, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's where the whiteboard came out that I showed you a picture of. That's just one of them. Yep. I think we drew like 5 or 6 different iterations that night. I mean, it was maddening.
But obviously that's kind of like a joke. You didn't sell because of the, people will take you literal. You have to be careful with how you explain these things. But I think like on a serious note, I think what you're saying is basically the explanation that I'm getting is is the Netflix earnings came out, and the reaction to the earnings as well as the guidance basically made you kind of reevaluate everything, and then you were kind of like the guy, the detective standing in front of the board with all the little post-its and the
Those-
pictures and the little flags, and then you
Right.
said, and then you had the like, oh my god moment, right? So I'm imagining this kind of scenario playing out.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And I think one of the things that folks miss is let me paint this picture here, because I think this makes a lot more sense. Is play this scenario out. What happens if inflation remains high throughout 2022? And in Q4, so the next Christmas holiday, sales are a little bit less than they were in 2021, because we have no child tax credit anymore, no unemployment pay anymore, no stimulus pay anymore, nothing, right? Household balance sheets are going to come down, whatever. So now all of a sudden you have a slightly less holiday spending in Q4 2022. And then in January of 2023, we get a negative GDP read. Well, now, if we have a negative gross domestic product read because people spent less on goods and services, everybody's going to freak out. And they're going to look at the Federal Reserve. And they're going to say, Fed, bail us out. You bailed us out in 1987, and you ended the panic. You bailed us out in 2003, you ended the dot-com bubble. You bailed us out in 2009, you ended the recession. You bailed us out in 2018, you ended the crash of the end of 18. You bailed us out on March 23rd, 2020, you ended the pandemic pain of the stock market, right? Every single one of those stock market corrections has ended with a bailout by the Fed since 1987. Every single one has been bailed out. And
now
so
they can't.
what happens
And now
if
they
we
can't,
get a
obviously.
negative GDP read and the Fed says, sorry, not bailing you out because inflation's too high. We got to keep fighting inflation. That is when people freak out. That's when we hit a real bottom.
So I'll tell you what I agree and what I disagree with your analysis. I
Sure.
agree that the Fed is not in the position to pump more money into the system. They literally cannot do it anymore. So that part is correct. There's no bailouts coming. They just get 7% inflation, and that was a while ago. We're on pace on 0.2 per month. Probably going to close out Q2 with almost 8, maybe even 8%. Very close to double digits. So ain't happening. No more money from the Fed. I agree. However, this presumption, it's a very speculative assumption about the GDP.
Yes.
It might or might not happen. Nobody really knows. I'm not going to pretend like I know, but there's a lot of speculation in this analysis. So I'll tell you what my take on this, and I'll be very honest with you, since I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I agree with everything. So partially I agree with this, with what you're saying about the Fed. Their hands are tied. They can't.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can actually fix whatever happened by coming out and saying, first of all, I think you should turn on comments. I think that was a mistake. Just let people go crazy in the comments. Yeah. So I didn't even know that. Okay. So that I think is a smart move. I mean, people don't like when, dude, people accuse me of deleting comments, which I don't. They don't understand. Some of them get filtered. So whenever they get upheaval when they think that they're getting silenced. That's why I don't fucking do it. The only time I delete if it's like racist, or I don't want my channel to get shut down. Like when people write this nonsense. But here's what my take is on this. I think you can fix everything that happened by saying, listen, dudes and dudettes, there's a lot of work, a lot of blood and sweat that went into this analysis. A lot of it, in fact, maybe all of it, is in the course that I'm selling. However, there comes a moment, especially in the crazy market where we're at right now, where you have to follow your gut. And everything in my body is burning up, telling me that this is the right move. And even though I can explain most of it, some of it is just experience, intuition, and my gut. Might be wrong, might be right, but it is what it is. And not everything that comes from your intuition can be put into a digital product. And if you think my course is not as good because I can't teach you my intuition, so be it. But it is what it is. I think if you step back and kind of admit that part, people will just fucking back off because you killed any argument against what you just did. Because by saying, well, this is
a good point.
I think that's a simple solution. Then everybody can just fucking leave you alone. Because I do think, and I agree with Ken from Chicken Genius, I do think that when you're on the top of your game, and whenever people talk about financial YouTubers, they talk about you, they talk about Graham. Like you're in the top, you're in the mountain. They all want to fucking tear you down. It's just human nature. So a lot of it is coming from jealousy. They know you're making money, mostly because you're fucking transparent about it. If you were shutting up about how much you're making, I think you get less flack. But like, I mean, you did it to yourself, so there's nobody to blame.
No,
But
no, you're right. Yeah, it's
I
not a
think
bad.
hold on. Let me just tell you something. I think honestly, once you do this move, I think people will go back to basically looking at the facts as they stand. And the facts as they
Right.
stand is this guy is working 18-hour days, 5 or 6 days a week. He's relentless. He's completely honest, even if he's wrong. He doesn't hide or delete stuff, and they'll just see it for what it is. They might not like you still. They might hate your thumbnails, like they hate my thumbnails. They might hate your face, whatever. But I mean, you take away because I know where it hurts. Like everyone has their points. Like you don't give a shit when they talk about your thumbnails. Like I don't give a shit. You don't give a shit when they talk about, Kevin, hey, me, sell my course, bro, whatever. You don't care about the shit. I don't also. But where it hurts is like where it hurts for me. If they say, hey, listen, you're inauthentic or you're a flip flop or stuff like that, they hurt because they kind of go at the core values of what you are. And that's why I think it hit you so hard because and people who pretend this would not have impacted them are lying. You
Oh
can't.
yeah. Oh no,
And
you can't not impact you.
yeah, it's not like complaining about thumbnails. You know what, Kevin? So I think you should just fucking address it and just say, hey, I went with my gut. Let's see what happens. I'm not an oracle. No,
Yeah,
if I'm
yeah.
wrong, I'm wrong. It is what it is.
That's true. I mean, ultimately, you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and if your gut says do something, then every model we create, every discounted cash flow we make, everything we do, all comes back to our intuition, right? What do we think growth is going to be for a company? What discount rate do we want to use, right? All the assumptions all ultimately come down to an educated gut reaction. So you're right.
How many hours do you sleep at night on average? I was just personally wondering this.
Oof. Like 4 or 5. I mean,
And it's enough for you?
I try to get 6. So, but average is probably closer to 5.
And with 4 or 5, you feel fine? You feel great? Invigorated?
No, it's not good.
So for me, it's if I can't get to 6, I feel it. But if I can get 5 to 6, I'm okay. 6 is
Yeah.
where I feel fine. I can never get more than 6 because I have 3 kids. The youngest wakes up at 5, like
Yeah.
Swiss clock. So I'm never awake past 5 anyway. So I hear you. So I want to tell you, I want to end this on a note that I'm going to surprise you. So
Okay.
you would never guess. And people who think I'm too nice to you, they can go fuck themselves. I don't care. So I don't think I am. I think I'm completely honest. But you would never guess what's my favorite video on your channel is. It's not the Grant Cardone videos. I'm gonna tell you right now. Don't go there. There's a video, you
Huh.
would never guess it. There's a video where you went to deal with a very complicated situation where people needed to get evicted. And you sat down with them in the lawn, in the chairs, and just fucking talk to them and solve the problem. You remember that video?
Oh, the Chandler video with Chandler. Yeah.
Where you just fucking diffuse the situation and the way it was done so sensitively and the way how you explained it. I think it was a life lesson how to resolve difficult situation. That video was pure gold. Although nobody watched that shit. It wasn't like a popular video. But you would have never guessed that this was my favorite video.
Wow. Thank you for that. Yeah. It's that's what's so great about YouTube is you can experiment with things, and some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. But hey,
Were you stressed out when
uh,
you were when you're approaching like the door and starting this? But did you think it's going to get explosive? Did you know you're going to resolve it?
oh, well, so I was reacting to Chandler. You know, I mean, I think you're I think you're onto something in terms of like analyzing situations and how to talk to tenants or diffuse them,
Yeah.
in terms of you could see so many different ideas in that video, and I think that's what you're picking up on is the memory of how many different ideas you can get from talking
Yeah.
to people and dealing with folks. But yeah, it's a really good video. And thanks for shouting that one out. But yeah, I mean, anytime you
I
deal
think
with tenants,
everybody will agree we want to see more real estate stuff from you as well.
yeah,
That
I
that
agree
that
with you.
part, there's nothing to attack there because you got the experience, you definitely got the track record, and people have seen your work. And
I got
obviously,
to do more real estate.
nobody
You're
would go
right.
back if I told. Listen, people who criticize you for not going back to it completely are just not fair. It's like at the end of the day, this is a business. You got a family, you got kids. It's a business. It needs to be viable. There's no business in the world that would go back to a business model that makes 70% less income.
No,
It's
of
never
course, yeah.
happening, bro. Not I would never do it.
What
So
do you think? Are you think we're at bottom?
no, no, I think we're at the bottom, and I explained to you my theory. So I've been
Yeah.
very we have opposing opinions. So how this is
Yeah.
how I see it play out. So my initial theory was that because inflation is, I think, realistically is higher than 7%. I think CPI is a
Oh
very
yeah.
skewed way of looking at inflation. But even let's say assuming it's a 7% inflation,
Yep.
then we're probably talking about Paul Volcker level interest rates that ideally we would have needed to see to solve this.
Yes.
For those who are not familiar, Paul Volcker was the Fed chair in the Jimmy Carter area. Then Jimmy Carter got fired, so to speak. Reagan came in, and they both did their part in killing the stagflation of the 70s, which was a Herculean task to his credit. And they did a lot of tough decisions, basically raising interest rates to insane levels and also deregulating everything, lowering tax, and basically letting the GDP outgrow the inflation while interest rates stop consumption and slow down. So that can't happen in 2022 for the simple reason that we have too much debt. Raising interest to Paul Volcker levels ain't happening. We can't afford it. Every percentage point is about $270 billion of interest that the US has to pay to service the debt. And that money has to come from somewhere. And if they end up printing that money, then we basically did nothing. It's a vicious cycle. So they can't do it. So basically, the Fed is stuck in the situation where they know inflation is much worse than what they're admitting to, but they can't raise interest rates. So they're basically playing the waiting game, kicking the can down the road. And there's a few things they can do in the meanwhile. I don't think they'll do it. They can go full Reaganism mode and completely let the GDP explode. They can restructure the US debt and go for a long-term 30-year fixed and eliminate any dependencies on variable interest. There's a lot of things they could do, but they haven't done jack shit yet. So my thought process was, so if we need to see, like at minimum, just to start the conversation, 3-4% interest right now today.
Yeah.
At minimum. It's just even the tip of the iceberg. And we're at expectations of 0.9, which is kind of the 4 hikes, whatever they're talking about in 2022. Then I thought to myself, well, the Fed will have to basically come out and say, well, this is going to be much worse than we thought. And that is going to be the triggering for the real bottom to come in and basically create a crater where everybody will be able to pick up pennies in front of the steamroller. And then I was cruising with that for a few weeks, even a few months. And then we heard the Jerome Powell speech, and I think you called it correctly before you went and on the original video when you called it a nothing burger. It was like you said, it was a nothing burger.
The Omicron.
The Fed speech, the Jerome Powell speech, the latest speech he gave.
Okay.
And it was like you said, it's going to be a nothing burger, and it was a plain vanilla. He basically tried not to say anything. He basically said, well, we'll wait and see. We don't know. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. And the market took it as a more uncertainty. The market dipped even more, as it usually does after one of his speeches. The man is a serial market crasher. And then on Monday, we had 3 Fed officials come out. And basically, I'm going to use Esther George as an example from Kansas City, basically saying, hey, things are bad, but we can solve this by reducing balance sheet, which would basically eliminate the use of further interest rate hikes. And more and more voices from the Fed. There were 2 more guys that came out basically saying, we'll raise in March, but after that, we don't know. And they're basically were insinuating, well, we're probably just going to do 0.25, 0.5 this year. That basically made me realize these motherfuckers just decided, or at least they're going to decide to kick the can down the road because they're looking at the bond market, and the bond market is pretty much giving them a mini solution. The bond market is the 10-year is what 1.79, 1.8. Let's just say 1.8 for simplicity. It's nearing 2%. It's up 60% on the year from 1.1. So the bond market is kind of fixing it for them. And these motherfuckers are going to say, well, the bond market is doing the job for us. The economy is kind of slowing down. Like maybe we can wait another 6 months and see what happens. And I think it's a wrong move. I 100% don't agree with that, but they'll do it because politically that's the easiest thing to do. And they're going to kick the can down the road. And what basically ends up happening is that it sends a signal to the market, party on. You remember Stifler from American Pie? Like, party on, dudes. And then the entire market flies up on this euphoria again, because the market is completely manic depressive right now. So we have this massive run for a couple of months. I don't know how many months, but we have this massive run until they wake up in 6, 7, 8 months and they say, well, CPI is at like 9%. We're about to hit double-digit CPI. We're calling it quits. We have to raise interest rates. Otherwise, we're gonna go down in history as the guys who caused the worst inflationary crisis in the history of the United States. They raise interest rates. I don't know how the fuck they're going to fund it. It's a whole different question. By that time, they need to have a solution, but they'll probably figure it out in 6 and 7 months. And that basically, it's like I gave the example, when we were kids and the parents would go out of town, we throw a crazy party. I don't know if you were a bad kid like me, but I was like a really naughty kid. But then they come back a day earlier and then they walk in the door and then everybody's like, the speed at which this party empties to it's you and your parents, it's like literally 25 seconds. Everybody's gone. And then that's how the market is going to behave. Is once they say it's going to go. So our main disagreement isn't about the methodology, because we agree on the path. We don't agree on the timeline. I think it's 6 months down the road. You think it's happening in March. And that's the only difference we have, I think.
Yeah, well, we might actually be more similar here, because I agree with you that it could actually take, I think you could actually end up having a bottom as late as Q1 2023. And I know that sounds crazy, but I've lost faith that it's definitely coming in March. I think we are in for a very, very difficult 2022. I can tell you they have some tricks up their sleeve, and then there's some problems with balance sheet reduction. Quickly, the government, if they need to raise money to pay more interest, they can tax, which is really unpopular, cut benefits, which they do. But
by the way, sorry to interrupt you, but I know you believer like I am in the Laffer curve. Raising taxes isn't going to raise collections.
No, of course not.
It's a bullshit move, right?
That's what they're gonna, you're gonna hear these things, but the big one that they can use for actually paying higher interest if they needed to is selling bonds. The Treasury Department can just sell the bonds directly. It doesn't have to be done through the Fed. So there's some options there. The problem that we have with the Fed right now is the balance sheet reduction is something that's probably going to take about 18 months to actually hit the market. And that could potentially let inflation actually overheat even longer, because all you have to do is look up the reverse repo market and you see how much cash the banks have. It's going to take probably 18 months to actually see, these balances go down to zero to where we're actually tightening. So I do think that some of the doves over at the Fed say, hey, an option is just balance sheet reduction. Maybe we don't need as many rate increases. But more and more, as we get these earnings calls coming out from companies, I think you're right. We're just going to see inflation blow up more and more and more. But it's not just the companies and the supply chains. It's like you said, the CPI is broken in how it measures inflation. We're going to get that housing inflation that's going to come in, which always comes in late, comes in 6 to 12 months late. And the Fed's going to be in a terrible place. And they won't be able to get a handle on inflation. And like you said, they might have to end up going with a much more aggressive approach, which they did already say. Was it Neil Kashkari on Friday said they want to walk the walk and start raising rates. Otherwise, nobody's going to believe them anymore. They actually will ever raise rates.
I was talking to one of my viewers who owns a big trucking company.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him and I said, "Hey, what's going on? Like, tell me from the actual ground level, like what the hell is going on?"
Yeah,
Saying,
please.
"Listen, on the one hand, it's name your price right now because it's just insane. On the other hand, I can't name my price because I don't have enough drivers.
Yeah,
It's
true.
literally we don't have enough drivers because people don't want to go out of work because of a pandemic or the pay isn't good enough. There's other better alternatives. We literally have gears standing, just not enough people to go out. We're in a major crisis. We can't even fulfill like most of our stuff. Like he's basically saying, if I could just get drivers, I would make so much money. I just can't. And it's indicative. The entire people just think the supply chains are going to solve themselves out. Fixing the port system in California isn't going to take 6 months. Fixing the trucking industry isn't going to take 6 months. These are fixing the structural issues with the way the semiconductor industry has been outsourced to improve revenues for decades isn't going to solve itself. They just every single company in the world has basically turned TSMC into a monopoly, and it's going to take time to unwind. I think that's why I'm partly bullish on Intel, by the way, because they do have that capacity, which nobody else fucking has, and they're
Yeah.
fucking cheap as hell. But I think that's the solution is much further away. Isn't people just assume that we'll wake up in 2022 Q3 and the supply chains will be like there's a little fairy that's going to come out and just like spray some dust and the supply chains will be fixed and everybody
Wow.
no, bro. Containers are like $5,000 right now. There's no truckers. Everything is fucking stalled.
Yeah.
And that's like pouring gasoline over the fire. This isn't what's causing inflation. You pumping 5.5 trillion into the economy is what's causing inflation. But you
Yes.
like supply chain shortages is like lighter fluid. Until you stop pouring it, the fire you can't put out the fire. So
Yeah.
it's useless to raise interest rates until you solve supply chain issues like that. They got a lot of work, man. They got a lot of work. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really
You should
good
be
point.
happy you didn't get elected. This would have been your problem.
Yeah.
Think
No,
about it.
well,
It's
geez,
an
man.
unsolved. Like you would have been dealing with the LA port and the Long Beach port. Like motherfucker.
Good point, man. Yeah,
Woo!
government, something else. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you've got so much demand coming from people that ordinarily, if we had supply chain issues, the company's margins would be falling. You know, Chipotle, Starbucks, or whatever, their margins would be falling. And in some cases, they are. But in most cases, all of the companies are either raising prices preemptively or reactively. And either way, they're like, don't worry, we'll get our margins back up because we're just going to raise prices and people are just going to keep paying it. So I think you hit the nail on the head, man. If we didn't print $5 trillion, maybe companies that should go bankrupt would actually go bankrupt because they can't run a business properly. Maybe companies that are very profitable will become less profitable because that's the way the market should work. But it's all been manipulated because everybody's got all this extra money, so much extra money in savings or asset wealth or whatever, that people don't mind paying a little extra. And so they're paying 10% more here, 30% more there for gas or electricity or whatever.
But not for Peloton. But not for Peloton.
No, not for Peloton. Yeah. Jeez, man.
I got it
You gotta be
wrong.
careful
I
with
made a
someone.
whole post. I made a whole post how I got Peloton wrong. And I admit it, I got it wrong. But dude, like Peloton are probably sitting right now and saying they're spending on everything besides Peloton. They're like,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. How come we don't have all the consumer demand? Yeah, yeah.
You
No
remember
kidding.
the
You know,
John
I
Hamm
don't.
commercial for Netflix? So,
No.
so John Hamm, the actor from that show, I forgot the act. It was like about the ad agency in the 50s. Forgot the name. It was a famous show on Netflix. People in the
Manhattan
comments probably
Admin.
Ad Men.
Madman.
Madmen. Yes, Madmen.
Madman.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Madmen. Thank you. But I didn't know. I didn't even know that it's called Manhattan Admin. Why they call it Madmen?
Oh yeah.
I just found out. Thank you. I'm too Russian
Yeah,
for
yeah.
this. So basically, so John Hamm is in this Netflix commercial, and he's like, everybody's getting their own fucking film, their own specials, like, and he's scrolling through every single like obscure actor, like he's getting a show, and he's getting. Why not John Hamm? And he's like, basically going on this rampage. Like it's like he's the Peloton, and or Peloton is John Hamm in this example. Like all discretionary
Yeah.
spending is crazy, but nobody
Right.
wants a $5,000 treadmill or a bike with an iPad. So I got it
It's
wrong. I admit.
no,
Yep, it was
it's
one of my
tough though
bad
because
calls,
you know
bro.
it was so revolutionary at the beginning of COVID because nobody had a gym, and everybody wanted to like survive, and we got all this
Yeah.
stimulus money. Yeah, you can't be blamed for that one. It's
I'll tell you why I failed on this. I'll share with you my failure. So my underlying analysis was when I saw what happened with the job market, I basically saw, well, people really want to work from home.
yeah,
And it's really much more efficient for a lot of people to work more, maybe not exclusively, more from home. So I had a buddy who got a big corporate job, couple $100,000 for a major public company, working exclusively from home from day one. He doesn't even have a designated office. Basically, they told him be within 3 time zones, and then that's it. And I saw this happening, and then I saw the lockdown, and I told to myself, well, we're probably going to change the way we live even after this thing goes away because people are going to realize it's much more efficient to consume culture at home, fitness at home. Why would you drive to a
everything.
gym? Yeah, everything will be done from home. And then I thought people are happy to work from home. They'll be happy to do everything else from home. I didn't realize how much people value human interaction. They're happy
Yes,
not to go to work because they don't want to be surrounded by idiots and people they hate. But they want to go to concerts and to a gym and to have fun and to enjoy and to shop and whatever, right? That part they don't want to do from home. So maybe not shop, maybe retail is kind of part of it, but at least the cultural enjoyment, fitness aspect is not going to be done from home because people want to be outside and hang out. And I got it wrong. That was my, I guess, worst call ever, Peloton. I had many bad calls. This was probably one of the
well,
worst.
at least you didn't have Robinhood.
Oh, I said Robinhood is trash from the get go, but I had many other bad calls. I called Wish and then it crashed. I had many bad calls. I don't hide them. I actually post them all on my thing.
Yeah, look, yeah, everybody's always you can't win them all, and that's the way to look at it. So I think that's great. Yeah, I mean, so are you buying right now, or
Yes,
what's your strategy? Are
I
you
was. So
selling?
I made. I look like a genius now. I had no idea, but I went on Dave Lee's podcast before you, a couple days before you.
Okay.
By the way, I love Dave. I'm doing a recorded show with him today later, and then we're going to post
Wow.
it in a few days. So I went on Dave Lee's podcast, and he asked me at some point, "What are your top three holdings?" And then I told him my top three holdings are Palantir, Tesla, Google, and the S&P 500. And that's where the vast majority of my money is. Most of the stocks I cover and I analyze, I don't invest in. I'm very specific about the companies I like. And you saw what happened with Google yesterday, and Google exploded,
Yeah.
and so it went through the stratosphere. But I made a video yesterday explaining Google didn't run up because of the 20-to-1 split. That obviously is like a match, but if you
Sure.
don't have that underlying powder keg below the match, it's not going to explode. If you
Good
look at the
point.
fundamentals of Google, this is literally if Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan had a baby, this would be Google, bro. It's like the perfect specimen. Value stock, like insane value stock, pricing power, monopoly power in retail ad, insane margins, 35% EBITDA margin, insane cash flow, $75 billion net income, growth 30 to 40%, like fucking startup level growth. So they don't have weaknesses. Like, how can you not? So I think when Google came out with the Q4 earnings and people were like, oh wow, but you needed that little catalyst. That 20-to-1 split is like that hype, but then people saw the fundamentals, and then that's why it's ran up. I think Google ends the year at 3,500. I'm going to be buying way
Okay.
more Google. So in the next few weeks, I have about 30% of cash on the sideline. I was waiting for the bottom. In the next few weeks, I'm going to be deploying it, and I'm going to put it in the same stuff I have right now, which is Palantir, Tesla, S&P 500, Google, not in any specific order, because I think we're going to primarily where we're going to see this run up is in the S&P 500. So I probably think we're going to have a nice 20% run until it crashes. It's going to be an insane euphoric run. However, it's not going to be like a parabolic run. It's going to behave, I think, like any market. It's going to go up and up, but I think at the end of the day, the next 6 months, it's going to go and going to take off. Of course, I might be fucking wrong. This might be complete nonsense, and I'm not just saying this as a disclaimer. It's a fucking theory, and I said this
No,
to
of
my
course.
audience yesterday in my video. Don't do shit because I have a fucking crazy theory. Don't go YOLOing your money. It's just, it might be just
Sure.
fucking complete nonsense. Nobody fucking knows where the market is going. We can only fucking guess. It's just, so I thought I'm deploying 30% of my cash on that assumption, but I'm buying the same stock I was buying before. It's not like
Well,
I'm
so
buying.
do you think we're going to go from pain now to rally and then to crash, and then
I'll explain with the analogy. I'll explain with the analogy. Now we have a really bad toothache. We're going to go on the 6 months of fucking painkillers. It's going to be fun. And then we're going to have to fucking get a root canal or probably even have the tooth removed, like a surgery.
Right.
We literally, instead of a filling, we are now in line in 6 months for a fucking, pulling out a tooth. So that's a really poor strategy, but it is what it is, bro. None of us in the Fed, we can't call it. We can just commentate on it, right?
But so why do you want to get in before the tooth pull then? Why?
Because I think I can get out before.
Okay. Oh, so you are going to trade it?
Yes. So I said this in my video. My next, so what I'm doing right now, and I addressed this in my latest video, because I think my plan is to ride out the S&P 500 towards 5,500, where I think we're going to go in the next few months. At 5,500, I'm going to leave no matter what, even if I'm not going to be standing there, because it's really tough to leave a bull market. People don't realize
it is
how psychologically tough it is to get out when the market is boiling hot. You're literally
Very
printing
tough.
money. So at 5,500, no matter what happens, I'm getting out, and it's probably going to run on more. I assume it's going to run more, but at that point, I don't know where. I need to have a major safety margin. So I'm getting out 55. And then the question here, you should ask me, well, Tom, you're a long-term investor. That sounds a lot like timing the market and trading, which is two things you don't do. And to an extent, it is. But there's certain alleviating factors why I feel comfortable in doing this. First of all, I'm only doing this with about 30% of my cash. 70% of my portfolio stays put. Inflation stocks, value stocks, with a healthy mixture of the stocks I like with S&P 500. So I don't, 70% of my portfolio stays put. I'm putting the bet on 30%. Number two, it is timing the market 100%, but it's timing the market a little bit different than what I think the Warren Buffetts of the world intended when they say it's a fool's errand. A little bit, not completely. When they talk about timing the market, Kevin, I think they mean the greater fool theory, which is buying a stock you know nothing about just to sell it later. Or they think about, well, the reversal, which is, hey, love Tesla, don't like the price, going to wait for a dip. You might never get the chance. If you like good company, just buy it. So they were talking about these events. What I'm talking about, and again, this is timing the market. I'm not, trying to escape from it. But what I'm talking about, there's macroeconomic events going on that are going to impact the stock market. And I think I can ride the elevator up to an extent, maybe not, maybe yes, we'll see. But it's 100% not an investment decision. It is a trade decision. But because I'm not going on a specific stock and I'm not going based on the greater fool theory, I'm trying to bet on my own analysis of macroeconomics. I feel comfortable in doing that. But
good.
It is trade, and it is by definition timing the market. And I might get burned. And who knows?
You might be right. I mean, there's I think there's plenty of time.
Nobody fucking knows.
Rallies.
Dude, you think my balls aren't shaking? Like, I don't know. I told to my audience yesterday, we had in the Discord, like a voice chat. And then I told them, if I was 80% confident about this, I would have YOLO'd into this. I don't know. It's a guess. It's a guesstimate. That's why because they are asking me, well, should we YOLO into this? And I told them, no. Nobody should YOLO into a fucking 6-month swing, but sometimes it's okay to do a bet if you understand the macroeconomics and you think you have it. But I'm completely comfortable in losing 100% of that 30% of my cash. I won't be mad, even if that happens.
It's a lot,
but it's highly unlikely for me to lose the entire 30, like a catastrophic event, probably me losing half of it at worst, because we're at 4,500. How much can the S&P 500 go down? I mean, it's not going to go down. I mean, we'll see what happens. But yes, it's a risky timing the market trade. It is what it is. I'm not going to fucking lie like it isn't.
Well, I mean, it could entirely happen. I think the big resistance you have is that it seems like every time our market goes up, people start selling, right? So we get these convictionless rallies. But hey, the S&P the last few days, I mean, it's retraced almost 65% or whatever of its fall, and hopefully that breaks out to a nice rally. I don't want to go into a recession. I think that's another thing people confuse is they're like, oh, Kevin, you're just spreading FUD so your recession comes or whatever. You can buy stocks cheap. I don't want to go into a recession. Everything gets bad in a recession. You don't travel, you watch all your pennies. It's harder to do business or to sell things or to rent properties or whatever. Everything's a disaster in recession. So I hope it doesn't happen. But
Do you
I
think
think that's an interesting trade
is this
idea.
a good answer for you to give? I heard this. We're going back a little bit, which I don't want to do, but I think you have
That's
a
right.
good rebuttal here. When I was speaking to a few people, they were saying, "Well, Kevin on the streams, but there's a red day. He's all sad and he's all depressed, but he sold out. It's fake." But you just, I think that's a good rebuttal to that. Is why you don't enjoy these, even though you're out of the market, because I mean, you're not looking. You don't want this to happen. I mean, it's kind of right. You kind of you wish you were kind of wrong a little bit about that.
Best case scenario, and this is my rule. Best case scenario is inflation gets better right away, supply chains get better right away, and I buy back into the market. I don't care if that means I was wrong or I got a little bit of worse pricing or whatever. Once the risk goes away, I want to be back in the market because I want to make money. I want the stocks to go up. I want it to be easier to place tenants or to sell stuff or whatever, right? That's a great time. Or you get paid more from advertising or affiliates or sponsors or whatever, right? Everything's great when the market's booming. Everything that I just listed goes to crap. YouTube ad revenue will go to crap in a recession.
Yep, true.
Sponsors will go to crap in a recession. Core
Everybody will
sales
suffer,
will
yeah.
go to crap in a recession. Everything will suck in a recession. So no, I do not want a recession.
I think we almost forgot to talk about this point. It's really important because I believe you when you say this. Sometimes when you say things, I believe you 70%, 60%. Sometimes I don't. But when you say this, I 100% believe you. I'm gonna tell you right now. Again, you might be bullshitting me, but I believe you because it makes a lot of sense to me what you're saying.
No, nobody wants a recession. It sucks. And so yeah, look, I hope best case scenario, everything starts U-turning and I look and I go, oh, I could buy Tesla at 950, still fine. Great. Put 40% back in or rebalance a little bit, whatever, right? Big deal. The risk is averted. But right now I am cash. I'm only short Lucid, like 50 grand. I'm not short the market. I might be short the market in the future. I don't know. It depends how I feel.
Lucid
but
is
I'm
a
not right
fucking
now.
fart, bro. I said this. Lucid is a fart. It means it's smelly, it's noisy, and it's gonna go away and be forgotten. It's a
Maybe.
bullshit company.
I mean, it'll do well for the short if that happened. But yeah, otherwise.
What have
look,
you ever seen the Lucid car? Do you know anybody? Where is the fucking car?
I actually bought one.
You bought one?
Yeah.
Where is it, Kevin? Show us. Where's the Lucid?
Yeah. So I gave it to my father-in-law, and this weekend I'm gonna do a review on it.
Wow. So that one I want to see. So did you drive it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I drove it down to Ross Gerber's house.
So yeah, Ross.
You can see my Twitter picture of us in the Lucid.
So what is the car legit?
Yeah, I mean it's legit. To me, it's like a Mercedes-Benz clientele. Tesla appeals to the 25-year-old to 45-year-old dude. The Lucid is like the 50 to 65-year-old, right? Who just wants that feeling of like quality or luxury or whatever. But there are some things that Tesla just blows them out of the water on, right?
But dude, is there enough TAM for a luxury brand? Like,
no,
what's the TAM on this?
No.
Like, it doesn't make no
Absolutely
sense.
Not. They need to strip a lot of the features they have to increase that TAM, addressable market. But the problem is then it's going to start losing some of the things that make it so kind of unique. Like, I mean, they've got the little window shades in the back. You push a button and they come up. You've got a seat massager in the front of the car. You can set the seat warmer to either your butt, your back, or both, right? Like it's all these little crazy little features that you're like, who needs that? But that's what makes it different, right? And I feel like when they start cutting these features out for the 70K car, you may as well just buy a Tesla.
You remember that movie Friday? My back and my neck. My back and
There
my
you go.
neck.
Freaking
I
awesome, right?
sound like I shouldn't have any familiarity with American culture because I have such a thick Russian accent. But when I speak in Russian, because I left at 9 years old, my Russian sounds as bad. So I don't have a language where I sound like a normal human being, and it's
You're in the
really fucked
middle.
up. Yeah,
That's
I'm
how I am
completely lost.
with German. I did lose my German accent in about first or second grade, but when I go to Germany, they're all like, "You sound like an American." I'm like, I think I still speak German well. Yeah.
I don't sound my accent. I like when I speak English, I can hear my horrible accent. But when I speak Russian, I can't hear my accent. They're like, you have such a thick accent. Like,
Yeah.
motherfucker, I can't hear it. I don't know how. But when they play it back to me, like I can hear it. But not when you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
that makes
yeah.
sense.
Listen, Kevin, thank you for coming on. This has been very interesting. I think you faced with stride some tough questions that I asked you. I wasn't going super Mickey Mouse on you. You answered. You've been honest. You've been truthful. If people want to hate you, they can hate you. I said from the
Mm,
beginning, I'm not part of that wave. I'm not. I'm not hating on anybody because they're successful. People want to hate you. This interview isn't going to help. But if people
sure.
really want to understand what the fuck happened, I think this interview would really give them a lot of answers, honest ones. And
I agree.
yeah, so it is what it is. Thank you so much for coming on, and let us know below if you want Kevin to come back. We'll see.
Well, hopefully you don't get a ton of dislikes, Tom. Thank you so much.
We'll see what happens.